start off with the first question and we might go through. So the first one is the importance, tell us a little bit about the importance of technology in transforming business, our economy and our international engagement.
Thanks, Sam. I think that I can tell you the importance of it in one word. So join with me, ladies and gentlemen, COVID. If nothing else, out of all the lessons it taught us and all the horrible things that it did to us, if it did teach us one thing, it was that we really need to make sure that we're at the top of our game in technology at all times. We could no longer see people, we could no longer go shopping, we could no longer have our pastimes, we couldn't study, we couldn't work, we couldn't play we couldn't exercise the way we used to. So we had to learn how to do everything online, remotely, within our own home.
I guess I wanted to talk about how education's developing as far as a digital platform. I use a program called IC to teach students around the state. So I teach STEM programs. It doesn't matter whether it's design thinking, 3D printer, laser cutting, forensics. My class is all across the state, so I teach highly capable students STEM subjects on a program, so it's virtual reality, it's immersive, and when we talk about ingrained inside the world, I want you to think about a game, like a video game like Call of Duty, where you're in it as an avatar. So you're actually a little screen going forward, but you can move and interact, so it's spatially aware. So if I'm close to you, I can hear. If you move away, you can't hear me. So therefore, students can actually interact with each other like they would in real life. You can teach, you can set collaborative tasks in that world, which you can't do if you put them on Teams. Like Teams, it's very much that one-way sort of thing. You can break into breakout rooms, and it's terrible. I find it terrible. You can have that meeting and get stuff done, but if you want to teach people and be a collaborative learning environment, I think we've moved past that, and it's going to be interesting where we go.
Probably just add to that in a bit of a different perspective. For me, I kind of grew up really just loving technology all the time, and I think once you're kind of in it and you're kind of looking backwards from where you started backwards, and you see kind of what kids are learning at school, I think you realise that if you by chance had this interest in technology, you were kind of lucky, because you realise that the point when you thought technology was really cutting edge, and now 20 or 10 years on, if you didn't know those fundamentals at the start, you kind of start getting left behind. And I think that can be a really empowering thing if you're on that tip of technology, or it can be a very fearful thing. So I think, and I'm sure everyone's probably heard of ChatGPT by now and probably seen all the clickbait, heard all the news. I won't go into the details, but I think the reason why that type of technology has really created such a stir in the society we live in is because it really brings forth that question that maybe we kind of were too fearful to ask, and it's, what value can we bring as humans to the jobs we do? And some of that will be automated, and some of it will change forever, just basically because someone brought this little program out called Chat. And I think really that's how businesses need to evolve, which means they need a workforce that also evolves with that.
So tell us about the implications for skills and lifelong learning.
Yeah, that's a really good one. So I suppose lifelong learning, and it extends obviously past digital and technologies. I think it's just a matter of looking at how we do things every day and try and doing them just a little bit better. Honestly, that's where these tools really help if you do know how to use them. When ChatGPT came out for us, we were using them to write emails, we were using them to just generate things that we could do, but the fact it would take us an hour rather than 10 minutes. And so I think for us as like a really small kind of startup in this space, it's always like, how can you be more efficient, because you're competing against people that have way more resources than you. They've got hundreds of staff, So it's always about, for us, is how do we just make those small steps that make a bigger impact in what we want to do. I think lifelong learning is just probably the number one skill I'd recommend anyone try and commit to. It's just a matter of always thinking, how do we be better? And by doing that, you tend to do better, and by doing that, you tend to get more customers, and by doing that, you grow. So I think for particularly anyone out there, and I really didn't get a chance to meet everyone out there, but if you're in a small startup space and you really need to make an impact quickly, it's all about how do you improve and how do you improve fast, because everything's kind of against you in a lot of ways, just because you don't have the resources. So I think that's probably the biggest impact, is just improving and keeping improving that way.
From a government perspective, with digital skills training and the implications of it, we are an enormous state. Queensland is very, very decentralised, and we've got a lot of thriving communities very, very, very far away from the headquarters in Brisbane. And for a long, long time, Queensland was sort of a bit of an us and them. You know, there were the people who lived in the CBD, and then there was sort of everybody else on the rest of the state. What's happening now through the advances in digital technologies, and then as a result of that, people's skills in digital technologies, is that we're actually shrinking our state a little bit more. So now what was once impossible, for example, to have two very, very outback communities maybe talking to each other or doing some deals together or even doing some learning, it's now possible for them to operate in real time and to get much quicker results. So what's also happening with government is that we're able to get services out to people more quickly. We're able to offer people instead of, you know, like the old, I'll put a letter in the mail to you and maybe you'll drive to the end of the street and it'll be there in a month or something. It's now almost immediate. You can go online, you can access services, you can pay bills, you can find information, and you can download the products that you need to be able to enable you to live your life, do your study, run your business. And that's where I think that the real winner is going to be. And this is why we're never going back. We're never, ever going back. This is only just going to keep getting faster and stronger and better. And we kind of just have to hang on and go along for the ride and embrace everything it does.
For me, I think lifelong learning I could foster through curiosity, getting our students curious about anything, about learning. If we can get them to be interested in whatever topic it is, they can be curious about, then they can use all these digital tools to learn about it. I just wonder if we're teaching them specific skills, you know, where is that going to lead them? So if you teach them how to be curious, they'll learn those skills naturally because they'll be interested in them. They'll want to go out and go learn these things.
Yeah, and I guess just to follow on from that, from our perspective in drone racing, it's a lot about you know, using those skills and learning those skills. There's a lot. Technology moves really quickly, like in drones, and the learning that you need, or the learning that you get from drones, like building drones, racing drones, it can sort of be a pathway into, you know, other skills, other technology.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Obviously, with the advancement of technology, and you know, we've had some really good examples there with the onset of COVID, the pivot in the way that we communicate with each other, but also some of the challenges that came with that as well. Moving forward into this new world, I guess, what are some of the challenges and opportunities in all of your respective areas that you think we can harness as everyday people?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mobile black spots. Don't hate me. I don't run that area. I know that the government is looking into it, but I've also known that through the job that I'm doing now, which has taken me to some of the most beautiful parts of this state, which I wouldn't normally go, or I wouldn't have opportunity to go. So I see myself as very, very lucky. It is the connectivity that is going to be a challenge that the government has to start committing some funds to. I know that we've just released the Digital Economy Strategy, which is Queensland's 10-year digital blueprint to get us through to the Olympics. I'm sure there'll be iterations on it as we go. It is receiving some funding, and I do know that that connectivity piece is going to be a very high agenda item. What it actually looks like, I'm afraid I can't tell you. I work in this capability space. But through our market research and engaging with stakeholders, we found out that connectivity is a huge issue. The other issue we've come across, so these are negatives, so I'm sorry to be doing this because I've done a lot of positive talking, is there is a big divide. There is a digital divide between those who have devices and access to devices and capability to use devices and those who don't. one of the things we're doing as part of the Digital Professional Workforce Action Plan is that we're partnering with a charity in Townsville called Lighthouse, Litehaus, run by an amazing entrepreneur called Jack Groden. And we are partnering with him to deliver 2,000 refurbished devices to First Nations and migrant school children in some of the most rural and remote parts of Queensland. So these are schools that only have like 40 kids in them sometimes. You know, there might only be 2 teachers or something like that. Because what our research has also shown us is that there is an alarming gap between those who can afford and those who can't, or just simply can't get access. You know, again, this happened in COVID. Suddenly there's mum and dad and the 4 kids. The kids are home school learning, you know, doing homeschooling, and there's 1 computer. How do you do that? What do you do? So they're 2 very big challenges. I know I can do something about the second one with getting devices and ergo training to these people, but I will definitely be doing what I can as a public servant to push on the connectivity issue. Who'd like to go next?
For me, an interesting one is workforce planning. So our staff, if we want to attract people to the region and keep them in the region, there's opportunity using digital technologies to keep them here, but then working not just for the town or for the school or for the area, to branch out, but actually keep people in Roma or their country area or their hometown through using digital technologies.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. I'd probably add to that what Tim just said. Actually, is I think it's very interesting when you kind of label yourself as a technological person or not, and I find a lot of people kind of do that to themselves. I think you then start limiting yourself of what you can do, and I think it's not a binary thing, it's definitely a scale, and I think for everyone that scale is very different, and I think where you start, just starting is the most important part. So I suppose just saying that. One thing that I find a lot, because a lot of the research I do is robotics in beef processing, which is a very ag obviously field. I get to work with a lot of people that come from ag, and I think you know, communities like this, like in Roma and Dalby and the ones we're going to, there's so much ag around, and I think it's quite interesting for me to see is there's also kind of ag is definitely not an industry that you would assume has a lot of tech in, but when you actually get into the roots of it, there's a lot there, and I think you'd be surprised how much opportunity comes from someone who's lived on a farm, knows the context of how things grow, or how to raise cattle, or how to feed them in a certain way, and adding tech to that. I think there's this kind of stigma that you have to be this Silicon Valley person who loves tech and comes into ag, but there's so much context in ag that takes generations of knowledge to learn. And I think, to be honest, I kind of came the other way, but I've really started appreciating that there's so much you need to know how to automate or put robotics in to actually work. Just wheeling in a robot into an abattoir just doesn't work. You really need to know how did the animal grow, where is its tissues, and all this stuff. And I could talk about beef for years, and I won't because everyone will, that's just been my life. But there's so much context that has value, and I think people see the shiny objects, oh, you know how to program a robot, that has value, and yes, it does. But there's so much knowledge that you need to know to use those technological solutions. So I think definitely don't not appreciate that in these communities there's so much knowledge. It's just a matter of how do you use tech with that to get value, and it's not just one or the other sometimes.
Yes, the next big question that I'm sure everyone is wanting to know from Dan is, how did you get into drone racing?
Yeah, so it started with a 3D printer. So my wife bought me a 3D printer for my birthday. I wanted to find something interesting to do with it. So I got on the internet, got on YouTube, and discovered that people were printing drones. So I started trying to print some drones and realised that they really don't last very long when they're 3D printed. So then I continued to research and reach out to other people in the drone community, and from there it snowballed, and now it is most of my life, apart from my wife and my other work, but so that was 3 years ago. So I'm 40. That continuous learning It's something that, even from a hobby side of things, you know, you can do. I didn't know how to solder. I didn't know anything about electronics. Since then, I've designed electronic PCBs for specific purposes within the hobby. Yeah, so it's just a really great hobby for STEM. You can do a lot of coding. It can be sort of the basic of just programming your drones, but then you can also, if you're interested, reach out into actually programming the software, because the majority of the software that we use is open source. So you can, you know, find issues that people are having or things that people want to do and contribute. So it's a really interesting and a really good pathway for learning, I think.
Oh, look, I think with 3D printing, a lot of my friends and stuff are always getting me to print out little things for them, whether it's a caravan and they've got a little thingamy-bob and they send me measurements and I've got to draw it up and 3D print it for them. So I think it's a unique skill. If you know how to do it, you'll get a lot of work from friends and relatives how to do that. But students, once they know how to do it, they're always trying to get in on the computer and you know, use it to their best advantage. So the big thing for them, I guess, if they want to get in drones or something, they just need that little bit of a push of money to get them started, and then they'll be broke for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
They'll have a
It's
job
cheap
and then
hobby.
broke. Yeah,
They could be doing worse things with the money, though.
that's it.
Yeah, I think I'll just add, it's really interesting, definitely not in drones, but in robotics. The reason I got started, I wish I could say I wanted to save lives and do some awesome things, but I really just loved battle bots, and I just wanted to build a battle bot with a chainsaw and a flamethrower, and all that silly stuff you grow up thinking that'd be a good idea as a kid. And I think it really is, to start, it's just finding the reason why and making that strong enough to put in those hours to fail and to just learn stuff off YouTube. And you know, there's a lot of stuff now. I think there's so much access to information, and you know, as you just said, Dan, there's so much stuff on Arduino Hub or you know, open source platforms. It's all out there, really. It's just a matter of finding the drive to look into it. We've definitely taught well, a lot of kids in 3D printing, and there's one particularly up near Mackay that's started his own business in 3D printing, and that he's not the exception. There's a lot of kids that do it. It's quite a lucrative business for kids, actually, so it's kind of cool to see them actually take it on, start making money. And to be honest, it doesn't matter if he's still doing that business in 2 years or if he's actually making serious money in 3D printing. It's the fact that he took something he loved, he found out that yes, there's value there and people are prepared to pay for it, and now he's got a whole new mentality of what tech really is to him, and it's about getting that driving. And I think he's going to go into all this STEM stuff because he's found that that's valuable for him, and so yeah, it's really about finding the purpose to learn, I think. And kids find that easy because it's fun. When we're grown-ups, we kind of maybe think we're too mature to have fun, but no, I think it's all about finding that perspective.
Why Digitrek? Why jump on the road for the AADRT? Some of them have travelled since 3 this morning to get here today. So why Digitrek?
Oh, straight up there.
Straight to there.
Yeah, so just like a lot of the engagements we do things like boot camps for cadets. It's about engaging the youth and introducing them to, for us, for drone racing, you know, how much it can be a pathway to learning. So all those things that I spoke about, it just, I don't know, it gives a great sense of accomplishment for me to be able to pass that on to other people, the things that I've learned. So, yeah.
I guess for me, it's just seeing last year how our students from the region went into all the different workshops, and they got to experience a lot of different things, not just one particular technology. So it was the experience that they got to share.
I'm just writing the check.
I'd say for us, we're kind of a small team, but we're always into ag tech, and I suppose for us, we always love going west. We're based in Toowoomba, but really we see a lot more engagement in kids that care about ag, and when we do ag tech, it really change their perspective. So I think this will be the second road trip we've done out here, and just so glad that TAFE has done this. There's a lot of effort that goes behind all this, and yeah, so a huge thank you to you guys putting it on. I think it means a lot to a lot of these kids because they just don't get the same access, even in Toowoomba to Brisbane. But then there's a whole nother layer from Toowoomba out west here. So yeah, it means a lot, and it's always hard to get a crowd. So I'm really glad you guys have shown TAFE that this is worth doing. You've come to it. I'm sure a lot of you guys have travelled maybe even an hour or two, or maybe even more. So yeah.
The purpose of the Digital Professional Workforce Plan is that it is Queensland-wide. It is not just centred in the CBD. And as I've said before, the government sometimes, or people, the perceptions of people for the government is that it's very centred here. We are breaking that barrier down by going as far and wide as we can. What I don't have on my team is the capability to put something like this together. So the best part about the work that we're doing in my little space is that we can partner with enormous names like TAFE. No one's going to come and see Bron McClain and the Professional Workforce Plan, but people will definitely come to see TAFE. So we're so grateful to have you as a partner. And thank you everyone for coming.